So this is part 2. I'm walking through a store right now, just trying to figure out what to get for snacks, since everything's contaminated anyway. But like my other video said, let's talk about the soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. More soldiers have committed suicide than have died in action over there or from bombings. So that being the case, could, like my other video said, could your brain be eaten away little at a time? Some of the symptoms they say for CJD are, forgetfulness and not being able to do math, not finishing sentences. Could it also affect the brain in many other different ways, like making bombs, blowing up people, getting angry, not being able to control your anger? What if I got one? Yeah, only 1 minute here. I had to turn the thing around. So could other brain activities be interfered with? Like, let's do a comparison. In World War II in Korea, there weren't as many suicides. There were atrocities then too. Soldiers had to see all kinds of horrible, horrible things. Yet a lot of them came home. A lot more of them came home and were able to go home, have babies, have families. A lot of them were able to do that. Why can't they do that now? Are the atrocities any worse now than they were back in 1940s? Were they any worse than in the 1950s in Korea? I don't think so. By the 1980s, you had this pyron disease everywhere. And those young soldiers have pyrons eating away at their brains. So could that also psychologically interfere in a soldier's mental activity, their motivation? Possibility of them committing suicide because they can't handle the stuff they're seeing because their brains won't allow them to. The stamina necessary to resist things like that affecting them isn't there. So there are a lot of theories here, but like I said, you'd need to probably hire a whole crew of neurologists to argue back and forth about what makes it happen, what doesn't make it happen. And of course there'll be the detractors who say, the brain would never be affected that way. Really? That's interesting. I presume you're a know-it-all about how the brain works in every different facet? How many brain cells are there? Billions and billions and billions? Even a good neurologist is never going to tell you they know everything, or that they know enough that they can say that the suicides in Iraq and Afghanistan aren't being contributed to by pyron activity. So we could go on talking about all kinds of stuff. The comparison is there. Compare the number of suicides in World War II in Korea, or even Vietnam, compared to the number of suicides in Iraq and Afghanistan. And compare that side by side to when pyron disease first appeared, when that guy in Utah ended up dying of CJD, brain wasting disease, and when he did pass away, everybody knew what he was passing away from. And he ate deer and elk. And he couldn't finish sentences, and he would have uncontrollable laughing fits and crying fits. He couldn't do simple math problems. They say there's a connection there that contributes to dementia and to Alzheimer's because of the plaque buildup in the brain. But that's what the pyrons do. But how many views are there? Practically very little views on all the pyron activity. But boy, the Anunnaki and 500,000 years ago, and the giants that supposedly existed back then, and the giant skeletons they allegedly have pictures of on YouTube. How do you know it's not all trick photography? I mean, you could go, unless you're there personally, I don't think you're going to be able to figure out who's telling the truth and who isn't on YouTube. That, I guess, would include me. Let's see. Would anything that I'm buying here possibly have pyron activity in it? Who knows? You got to go back and see what the source of the food